Council members, if you have any additional questions that goes beyond the hearings, please make sure you email Danielle, myself, and Mr. Jameson with operating budget in the subject line for the respective department. Your questions and their answers will be compiled on our SharePoint and cataloged by department so that it allows all council members to be able to see various questions and answers as it relates to the operating budget. And again, per rule, we will only be discussing the operating budget. And now we have the Sports Authority. And I'll just begin with the question that I've been asking the other departments as well, with the understanding of the status quo recommended budget. If you can provide to us what that means for the operations of your department, and provide a brief synopsis of the services that your department provides for the city. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Lady Bircher, and members of the Budget and Finance Committee, members of the Metro Council. We always appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Besides me, well, actually in the galley now is Sports Authority Chair Kim Adkins. Also beside her is Sports Authority Secretary Treasurer Emmett Wynn. We're also pleased to have representatives from the team. From the Titans, we have President and CEO Steve Underwood, our CFO Janine Kaufman, Vice President of Facilities Bob Flynn, and Stadium Manager Walter Overton. And from the Nashville Sounds, we have Vice President of Operations, Doug Scopel. Between Game 6 in Winnipeg and the watch party at Bridgestone Arena, the Predators send their regrets that they could not make any senior staff available to be here tonight. But we are cheering for them. Big game, big game.
And we're not rushing the hearings because of anything, so just go ahead.
Thank you. So as you all know, the Sports Authority serves as the owner and the landlord of our city's professional sports venues, Nissan Stadium, Bridgestone Arena, First Tennessee Park, and Ford Ice Center. And we are charged with keeping them in first-class condition. In 2017 alone, approximately 1.4 million people visited Nissan Stadium, and more than 1.5 million visited Bridgestone Arena. First Tennessee Park welcomed over 600,000 visitors. So our teams and our venues play an important role in the lives of many Nashville and Middle Tennessee residents and visitors. And we always want to point out that it's not just sports. Our facilities are also critically important to Nashville's music industry and to the tourism industry. And so as a result, the care and the maintenance of the facilities is a charge that we take very seriously. We have submitted a status quo operating budget for FY19, and this budget will not negatively impact our ability to support our facilities. Over the past 2 years, the Sports Authority, in partnership with our teams and our facility managers, has made great strides towards prolonging the lives of our facilities. We've completed full seat replacement projects at both Bridgestone Arena and Nissan Stadium, and have made extensive repairs to many of the stadium's old expansion joints, which had resulted in leaks and water damage to the facility. Suites at both facilities have either been renovated or are in process and in the queue. We are also using the recommendations from the facility assessment studies that you probably remember we mentioned last year, and we commissioned it in 2016, and we're using the results from that study to both inform and to prioritize future capital spending, both at the stadium and at the arena. I think it's also really important to note that both of these projects, the seat replacement project and the facility assessment study, were funded with seat use fees and with CMA revenue, CMA concessions revenue. And so that simply means that the fans who came to the facilities and who sat in the seats are the ones who paid for it. It's also important to mention that over the past couple of years, our teams and the facility managers have made sizable private investments into the venues, from restrooms, renovations, and HVAC refurbishments to suite renovations, food court build-outs, and metal detectors. Each of our teams has contributed to the facilities that they call home. In addition to our major league teams and venues, the Sounds continue to look for opportunities to expand the use of First Tennessee Park. This past fall, they hosted their first concert, Kings of Leon. They've hosted Vanderbilt, Belmont baseball games. And as you probably are aware, they are currently hosting Nashville FC's inaugural season. And last but certainly not least, we love to talk about the great things that are happening out at Ford Ice Center in Antioch. And it continues to provide an important opportunity for the community to actively participate in hockey leagues, learn to skate programs, and the Scott Hamilton Skating Academy, which we recently were told in year one they had 4 participants, and 4 years later they have 1,400. So from NHL rookie camps to the U.S. Figure Skating Olympic qualifiers, in just 4 years, Ford Ice Center has become one of the busiest and premier ice centers in the country. Thanks to our professional and amateur sports teams, the support of fans and city leaders, including the Metro Council and the administration, and partners like the Nashville Sports Council and the CVC, Nashville is evolving into a great sports city. And as we look to the future, we remain excited about the possibilities of a new stadium at the fairgrounds, about hosting an NFL draft, another women's Final Four, and maybe down the road, even World Cup. So our continued focus is to have the first-class facilities that our community can enjoy, and ones that will continue to attract first-class events like the ones that I just mentioned. And so we appreciate your support in this effort, and we're going to get there. So I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have for me.
Thank you so much. Councilman Cooper.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Director, for being here. A couple of quick questions. Thank you. This Sports Authority is complicated, and a lot of the money comes back in the sort of the Finance Department pages. But under the Sports Authority would be a lot of these items. I noticed the subsidy for the Sounds ballpark is down to $600,000 from $1.4 million last year. What does that do to, is that due to outside revenue being generated? Because the TIF project has not started yet, has it? The redevelopment project?
It hasn't, but the collections in that area have increased, so that drove the subsidy amount down.
Yes. And that's from tax collections in the neighborhood?
Yes.
So that's sustainable?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's great. Marvelous. The Bridgestone subsidy of $3.351 million, obviously Bridgestone's incredibly successful. Just generally, if you would go back over for the public, why are we still paying a $3.35 million line for Bridgestone in the current budget?
When the lease was amended, up until the lease was amended, there was no cap on the subsidy. And so as I know you're well aware, every year we were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. And then with the amended lease, then there was a maximum loss cap. And so that cap is, around 5.2, 5.4 million right now. And so it greatly incentivizes the team because they know that anything in excess of the cap, over the cap, they will be on the hook to pay for. But should they come in underneath the cap, then they get to keep that.
They get to keep the difference.
Yes.
And that the expectation of this year and going forward is still going to be more than $3.351 million.
I'm sorry, say that.
Well, the expectations for next year too, that you would keep it at that same level. Is this something that can go down in terms of? It's too early to know under this. Okay. And then the GSD stadium debt transfer, $3.2 million even over years. That's a amortization, debt service and amortization payment. When will that be paid off? Okay, but is that debt payment, do you think it's matched with the lease of the stadium, or? Okay, but equally that payment also, you'd expect to have that for the next several years. Okay, another question, the Ford Ice Center that you were mentioning, what level of revenue does that generate? for the city, and does that pay for its operations?
The Ford Eye Center, they basically break even. They do pay us rent to the tune about $350,000 right now. I think that's going to increase maybe next year. In the next 1 to 2 years, it will increase to $375,000.
$350,000, and that's paying it to the general fund, the $350,000 in rent?
I believe that it goes into the Arena Revenue Fund. And I can check on that one.
The Arena Revenue Fund, and then if you would just define for us what is the Arena Revenue Fund? How many arenas is that fund for?
She knows.
Okay.
That is the Bridgestone Arena Revenue Fund, and it is, a bucket is not a very technical term, but if I were to explain it, I would say that rent from Ford Eye Center, rent from the Predators pay rent, seat use fee, rent from our other tenants in the facility, so the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, the CVC, the Register of Deeds, that all goes into the Arena Revenue Fund, and then when we need to pay the management fee and some of these other obligations that the city has, then it comes out of the Arena Revenue Fund.
But the payment of $3.35 million to Bridgestone is separate from the general obligation taxpayer, from the general fund. So it's not that the Arena Revenue Fund is covering all of those expenses. We are still out of pocket these other amounts that we're discussing.
I don't think I followed that. I'm sorry.
Well, you were describing where the Arena Revenue Fund, the Bridgestone Arena Revenue Fund, had assets that were producing income.
Yes.
And the income was coming in and paying expenses.
Mm-hmm.
However, we still have expenses beyond those expenses, as evidenced by the Bridgestone subsidy.
Oh, the subsidy, yes. So the management fee, if there's a performance bonus or incentive fee, that comes from the Arena Revenue Fund.
Okay, so really the Bridgestone subsidy is from the management fee, the success fee of the management fee. The $3.351 million is separate. See, some of this is paid for by the general taxpayer. Some of this is paid for by the Arena Revenue Fund. Just going back to why is any of, I mean, how much money is in the Arena Revenue Fund? Is there a positive balance?
Yes.
Okay, how big is that balance?
Councilman, I don't have that information with me, but it is readily available. We can get it to you first thing in the morning.
Okay. So it's just a question of when is this sort of break even to the general taxpayer as separate from the fees and rents and collections that you all are quite wonderfully collecting. Okay, and then one final question, very gracious of your time. The payment of the architectural plans for the stadium, the famous $135,000 that were paid by the Sports Authority for the stadium plans at the fairgrounds, that came from a seat tax fund, we were told at the time. And the seat tax fund is separate from the Arena Revenue Fund?
It is. It came from the Arena Revenue Fund, but as seat use funds are collected, then they are deposited into this Arena Fund.
Into the Arena Fund?
Yes.
Okay. And you are the arbiter of the Arena Fund, right? Everything coming, I mean, you are the public's watchdog over that fund, making sure that the rent is paid from the Ford Eye Center and the Predators and all these different sources of money going to the Arena Fund. The public's right in viewing you as their guardian.
Well, Metro Finance is our fiscal agent, so they are the ones who watch. I would say we watch over it, but in terms of the specific allocations that are made and seeing what is paid and initiating some of those payments, that is done by Metro Finance. Okay.
And then your operating money, that is coming from the $1,718,000 split in half, other program revenue, and then that collections. That money is coming also from the Arena Revenue Fund, from a seat tax?
No, from our budget, that comes from the general fund appropriation.
From the general fund appropriations. of 859,000, which is exactly half, and then the other half comes from,
The other half is really just a transfer between the funds, because we will take that $859,000 general fund appropriation and do a transfer into the special purpose fund for her day-to-day operations. So you'll see a transfer into the fund for that amount.
so all $1.7 million comes from the taxpayer, just sourced, tracking through two different funds to get to the $1.7 million.
It really is a duplicate of the number. I just would characterize that as the $800 and something thousand. If you jump over, Councilman, to
Okay.
I-64.
Yeah, it says other government revenue. Okay, so
You will see on the page before where you've got GSD funds, the 859,
okay.
and you'll see that's coming in as a operating. You see the 832, that's where her expenses are.
Yes.
And then if you go to the next page, which is the special purpose fund, you'll see a similar transfer coming into that special purpose fund.
So for the effect on the taxpayer, it would not be incorrect to say 859, the $3.2 million debt transfer, the $3.3 million from Bridgestone, the $1 million for stadium maintenance, which I know you all have been careful. You know, everybody wants it to be a higher number, but you've able to get it done at $1 million, and then $600,000 for the ballpark. Those are the sources of general taxpayer money in this space, if you were to add that up. Okay, very grateful. Thank you, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Cooper. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back to the 135,000. Has the commission, our board, whatever you want to call it, have you put into place some safeguards to where that doesn't happen again, where you would know about it prior to something like that occurring?
So coming out of that whole experience, the main change that we've made is adding the Sports Authority as an approver to this particular workflow, which we previously were not listed to. So that, we believe that that will take care of that, because now I will see all of the invoices and we'll have the opportunity to approve those. And again, this is for project management services.
Right. The 1.4 million people at Nissan, how does that compare to the last couple of years? You said attendance was about 1.4 million?
1.4 in 2017 is the number that I've received. And clearly, and they are here and might want to speak to that, but we have seen just this upward tick in the number of events and subsequently the number of guests that have come through the stadium. So they have added soccer games, Monster Jam, concerts, and so we're just seeing an increase of events over there that we are really appreciative of the work there.
Okay. The reason I asked the question is because I don't remember what year it was, but we allotted 25 million or so for some improvements, and the question was asked, well, because I think at the same time, I think we upped the seat charge from $2 to $3, if I remember correctly. So we're collecting about $4.2 million that goes into the debt service to pay off the bonds that we took out. I'm just wondering if, you know, what it's looked like as far as usage over the last 3 years or so. So if you don't have it here, that's fine.
I was going to say, we're happy. We have all of the ticket tax information, and since inception, we know that the ticket tax has, I mean, $20 million, I think, is about the revenue that it's brought in since inception. And so we can, if you would like numbers, like year-to-year numbers, we can definitely do that. But it's doing what we hoped it would do, and we're very pleased. We're very pleased over there.
Okay. Now, what I'm really just looking for, I mean, first of all, I'm glad there's more events because we were, you know, again, when we issued the bond on the stadium, there was some concern of, will we actually collect enough revenues out of it in order to make the payments? It sounds like we're doing that. And so, Talia, I don't know if you can give me the number, but, you know, where are we on our reserve fund, our debt reserve fund for the stadium? You know, has it done what we anticipated it doing? So that would be helpful.
Okay, we'll look that up.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Remember to put that in the question. Council Lady Allen. You're good? Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Vercher. Councilman Cooper asked all my questions, except one. And so as we're looking at this 890 or 859K that gets transferred in from the GSD, and then otherwise, when I'm looking at your operating expenses, pretty much all of them are in the very helpful category of other. So I guess what I'm wondering is for your $495,000 there that you have in other, can you speak to your major expenses in that regard?
Yeah.
For instance, your salary and your staff salary?
Well, so our salary would be in personal services, but the main component of that all other expenses goes toward its building insurances. We pay about $440,000, I think, in building insurance.
Okay, so $440K in building insurance. And then I guess I will just ask finance. So as we look at all these budgets, and then we have listed here the various FTEs, and we consider that per department, you know, status quo or up or down a staff position, where are we finding those salaries in our binder, please?
In terms of the salary line item for the budgets, it'll be listed under personal services bucket at the top. And that number would include salaries plus fringe benefits.
Okay, and then, Ms. Executive Director, how does that break out then? So that's $294,500 for yourself and 2 other staff.
So my salary
Yes.
is about $110,000.
Okay, thanks.
I have 2 staff who are at around $40,000 each.
Thank you very much.
Did you have any more questions, Council Lady?
Oh, no, ma'am. I thought it was clear that I was.
Okay, thank you. Council Lady Van Rees.
Yeah, I was just, could you remind me how many people went to a soccer game at Nissan Stadium?
Went to this
This last year?
last year. So between the 2 games, between the Gold Cup and the ICC, we had about close to 100,000, or maybe
Okay,
just over.
so 100,000 of that 1.4 is soccer fans?
I'm sorry?
100,000 of the 1.4 million attendance was soccer
yes.
fans?
Yes, and probably more than that who just may not have been able to get to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing our other council members seeking recognition, thank you so much to the Sports Authority and all that you do to serve the city. Now we will have the Convention Center coming up.